Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. It is November the 9th, 2022, and I am Jason here in Brenham, Texas at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas. And let's start off with the sun because the sun's kind of quiet. There was a M class solar flare a couple days ago in the sun. It was not Earth directed, and that is not a big um, eruption, and so nothing came hurtling towards the earth, and so the sun isn't generally quiet like it was last week. The coronal hole stream tends to be consistent, so we get a day or so rest in between each coronal hole stream over the next week or so. And that sort of said, that is going to cause pressure, right? So it'll almost feel like pressurized, but not anxiety pressurized, not like something's fixing to crack. And so that causes, on the planetary system, that causes earthquakes. And there was one out in the ocean outside of Australia, and then there was one yesterday in Nepal, and then also one light rumble in Italy. So the sun is governing what happens on the surface of the planet the most. And so it's really interesting that the sun, with the Aztecs and Mayans, was really the governing thing of consciousness. And so the sun governing weather is also governing our consciousness. And so paying attention to the sun is good. Overreacting to solar flares and stuff like that is unnecessary. If there were going to be a big eruption from the sun that was going to do bad things, you'd probably have about 10 minutes notice anyway. And so by the time you caught it on the internet, you'd be done. So, but that's nothing to worry about. And then the most thing that it'd probably do in a first eruption would be to kill the internet. And so you would just think, hey, my iPhone doesn't work today. More than you'd feel any kind of really climate change, maybe, some earthquakes if you're close to fault lines, if something big like that erupted. But the sun is in generally calm. It's going to be calm for the next 4.5 months, with minor flaring here and there, but it's not going to be repetitive or high volume of those flaring. So the sun is sort of good. It's just a nice consistent energy. The thing to be aware of is that the Earth's magnetic shield against solar radiation and therefore cosmic radiation is lower. So more of the sun gets through. And so that just sort of means that the sun, this active energy, this usually solar energy is masculine energy, this movement of energy is coming and activating your inner world, your inner dialogue, your inner light, to move towards this new time, which we're going to talk about what's happening in the stars with that. So the sun is important. The sun is governing most of what's happening on the surface of the planet. Although I think here in the United States, we just had election day yesterday. We give a lot of our consciousness and our sovereignty away to thinking that something outside of us is governing what we're doing. But really, the sun governs everything. And what it's doing is it's fueling our power to be ourselves. So sort of go out and sun gaze if you feel like you need some extra energy. But moving right into the actual astrology and the stars, today is the day after the full moon lunar eclipse. Full moon lunar eclipse and the blood moon, yeah. And that energy is sort of nice and vibrant, right? So we're going to have about a 2-week sort of push from that. So we had a 2-week eclipse window between the solar and the lunar. And then we have that sort of energy of those eclipses lasting for about 2 weeks that we can sort of use and manifest stuff with. And so interestingly enough, it's a completion of a 19-year cycle. The moon goes in 19-year cycles, and the last November full moon blood moon eclipse was in November of 2003, not 2023. That'd be next year, 2003. And so sort of remember back to what you were doing 19 years ago, right? In this end of a 19-year cycle. And what were you working on? Were you working on a relationship? Did those relationships end? What did that relationship teach you, right? So I know working at the shop that relationships are an issue around these intense times, around the holidays, whether those be relationships that have ended, whether that be people that have passed on, whether that be relationships that are functioning in difficulty right now. And so just sort of like, what were you doing in 2003 and what have you worked on? Who are you becoming? And then how did that relationship or how did this time period sort of inform that? And are you ready for the next level of what you try to do? Or is that time to go to the drawing board with this reset with the solar eclipse to do something new? Right. So 2003 would have been, for me, just as an example, that would have been the year that I graduated from seminary to go ahead and be a Lutheran pastor. And so I was going off into the world to go be a pastor in 2003, graduated in May. And so by November, I believe I was already working at my first church, waiting to get approved by the synod to get my ordination done. So I got ordained in 2004. And so I was working at the time at this little town next to Brenham called Cat Spring. And so what was I working on there? I was working on, I began the journey of spiritual leadership with a degree, right? And so over the last 19 years, I've learned how to use that degree, what kind of communities to build, and then really my own sovereignty so that I can stand alone in my spiritual leadership. And so I've built a community around not just what I've been taught in school, but empowering people to be their true divine selves. So that kind of arc of journey these last 19 years, I was in the church half of those, right? So left in 2013, 2014, right? So for the last decade, I've been doing what I'm doing now, right? But I've progressed further to where what I know is the details of Holy Scripture, the details of spiritual community, and then techniques I've gathered over that time to not just allow me to be more of an expert, but to empower more people to do more things in their life and to be their own sovereign, their own divine self. So 20 years, pretty cool stuff. So also today, keeping with the stars and not Jason's resume. Today is when Uranus is closest to the Earth all year. And so it's also in opposition to the sun, right? So the solar eclipse and then also the lunar eclipse is solar energy because basically the sun gets in the shadow of the Earth. And so that's why the moon goes dark. And so this solar energy opposing Uranus today is really about what kind of innovation or discovery has this eclipse season brought about, right? And so what have you discovered about yourself over the last 19 years? What do you want to do with that good parts or even the useful parts of yourself that you discovered? And how would you like to discard or move past the things that weren't so helpful over the last 19 years? That's the kind of energy that's sort of going on. Also, the negative side or the not so positive side of Uranus, besides innovation, self-discovery, technological advances too, right? So just sort of look since 2003, the technological advances that we've sort of made, cell phones, social media, and some might not call those an advance, but we have that kind of energy, like what sort of happened in the last 19 years in those aspects. But the other side of that is you could just be feeling just extremely irritated, right? That 19 years somehow was wasted, or that the world that you thought was built around you is crumbling. And so you just are at a loss for what you want to do, how to create a new world. And so that energy of Uranus just makes you want to rebel, but not necessarily with a cause. Just, I don't know what I want to do next, but I want to burn whatever this is down. And so that's an energy which might be bubbling underneath the surface, even if you've been working on yourself. Sometimes the what they call the vigilance, or the ability to maintain effort in a direction, the vigilance to remain sovereign, to be spiritually aware, to move in a spiritual path, to create in a formal setting or a standard setting of a church into a informal setting of a rock shop, a spiritual center, a breathwork person. Right? How do you remain sovereign? Right? And sometimes you just want to burn it all down and not know what to do next. That level of frustration might be pushing pretty hard today for most people. That seems to be the prevailing energy that I sort of get from the ether in some conversations. That's an okay energy to have. Just notice that that's a planet's pushing you to do that. And you can sort of use that energy to do a reboot, to have the energy to, hey, I'm going to do something new, but probably want to plan on like what you're going to do next instead of just burning it all down and watching it. Leads us to Friday, 11/11/2022, which is the next thing that's happening. That's just a nice numerological day. That 11/11 gateway is what they call it in the spiritual world, which just sort of means that energy of synchronicity of the universe falling into place is there. And then being 11/11, It is 2022, and so that gives us a 222 because zeros in numerology get taken away. So 222 is the number of change, transformation, right? So that desire to burn it all down, to have this great monumental change, is bubbling up, and it's going to sort of peak on Friday, and that's change, pivot, flip mode, turn the world upside down. Maybe the entire opposite of what you've been building for the last 19 years wasn't what you were. You were trying to appease the society or relationships, and that wasn't your true self. So maybe it's an entire flip mode. That's totally fine. That energy persists into Saturday, which is an 11 master day, right? So it's another numerological mathematical equation that gets us to an 11 energy. And that 11 energy really is, they call it that because that's the master number in numerology, in tarot. A lot of the secret societies use 11 as that. So 11 is noticed as that kind of energy altogether. And so with all that solar energy that's coming through, the eclipse energy, the 1111 gateway energy, that energy, when we say energy is flowing through, that's really, in the most ancient sense, is called prana. Which is just spiritual energy, right? And so spiritual energy, spiritual prana is sort of existing in the ether and usually enters the body most easily through breath. And so breathing, just breathe, right? Everybody says that, but it's not just about breathing. When you breathe unintentionally, or when you breathe unaware, right? Sometimes your breathing patterns can be modified by the stress of the planet, right? And so you'll have shallower breaths, right? And then we'll take a deep breath, right? That's getting into it, but you need to take a deep breath with intention. And so this weekend is really the time to, with the energy of the 1111, the 222, is really the time to sort of breathe and get a rhythm of breath or an intention about it, and breathing in this solar change, right? So you want to breathe in divine awakening, divine change, divine direction, divine understanding, divine consistency, persistency, right? Moving into this new creation, right? Because if you're feeling it, the entire planet's feeling it, therefore group consciousness is feeling it, and it's going to feel less solid as a society. And so you need to breathe in what is the cosmos, what is source, what is God sending through us in our breath, right? Spirit is also associated with breath, the Old Testament ruach, right? So this idea that what's coming is not necessarily a zap of electricity, but something riding on the waves of our breath, that it comes in with the oxygen, the nitrogen, and the carbon dioxide, and it comes along with. And when you have the intention that you would like to receive that good gift, that breath, that knowledge, that understanding, that source plan for you, right? And whether that plan's a mathematical equation that goes past your DNA and works with your organs or stuff like that and is a more mechanical way, great. Or whether that's something that your spirit is waiting for you to contact or ask for, or use your free will to desire, and all of a sudden gives you epiphanies and understandings that have always been within you, that's a different thing, or your point of view, right? So that's going to go along with your intention, but you want to breathe intentionally. And speaking of breathing intentionally, we just had our first breathwork class on Sundays at 10 a.m. And that is an intention of breathing on purpose, with purpose. And so that sort of is a guided experience where we breathe in a rhythmic way, elemental rhythm breathing. And we breathe deeply, we breathe with intention, we breathe in prana. And that prana, when we breathe for about half an hour intentionally, starts to change and activate things within your mind and helps you release things that have been stuck, helps you come to epiphanies of what's going on, or maybe what to do next. Emotions can come up. Physical ailments can release while that's sort of happening. We had a good small group of 3 people that were here this last Sunday. We had 5 that were signed up. And so it's a nice small group event to sort of do that in. And that happens every Sunday. And you should go online to newdimensionscrystals.com to sign up for that. There is a limited space. We can have, maybe up to 10 in that room comfortably, 15 if we really need to fill it up. But the small group is nice. That is a paid service, so that's $22 for beginning. It is a regular $44 class. And so great time to check that out. Be doing that every week except obviously Thanksgiving week and Christmas Eve week. here at the shop, 10 a.m. to 11:30. And that just sort of leads us into the weekend. If you want to come by and do breath work, but if you're not going to come by, you could also look up to the stars, the Leonids, so the meteorites that are appearing in Leo are starting to peak. They'll should be peaking towards the weekend into Monday, Tuesday. But that'll close up our star report for the weekend, our astrology outlook. And probably just a little bit more coaching than you were expecting on this thing. And I don't know how long this video is, but if you have any questions, come by the shop, send me an email, set up an appointment, and we'll get into what it is that's going on with all this energy with your individual circumstances. That's a good word. Until next time, guys, many blessings.